We are Southern Illinois.
Looks left, Dania Mayo, bounce pass quickly. Ronzalibe, low left block, beat his man, and a reverse sway in. Ronzalibe with his first made field goal. He's got 4. SIU with its largest lead. Timeout, Illinois State.
It's time for Saluki basketball.
Hesitates near left corner 3. Haynes on its way, ripped it in. Jalen Haynes knocks down the 3. He's got 6 in the first half. 35-28 SIU. 1 minute to go till halftime.
Now, here is the voice of the Salukis, Luke Martin.
Saluki Nation, welcome back into the Saluki Radio Basketball Podcast. Alongside the Hall of Famer Ronnie Watson, I am Luke Martin. We're going to be joined by Dave Snell, our good friend, the voice of the Bradley Braves. He's been the voice of Bradley since 1979. He's going to join us, talk about the Braves and Salukis on Sunday. It is always a matchup that I think both fan bases circle at the start of the year of when each team's going to be in their respective venues, and Southern will go to one of the toughest venues to play in terms of Carver Arena here on Sunday. Of course, Coach Watson, Southern coming off the loss to Illinois State in the Valley opener on Thursday. It was a game that SIU led by 5 at halftime. We were kind of chatting briefly after the game that the two games were different in terms of the Richmond game where you led at halftime and then the Illinois State game on Thursday. But it was those big runs. Richmond, of course, had the huge 16-0 run. Illinois State last night, that run right after Ronzalibe got that and-one basket in the early stages of the second half. Just two runs that really flipped both of those games, and Southern was just unable to overcome those runs late in both.
The biggest difference in the game, and we didn't really get to it last night, either during the post-game or is that Illinois State did a great job of not letting there be big possessions, lots of possession in the game. Southern loves 70-plus possessions. The Richmond game in regulation, 75 offense possessions. And that really fed into Southern getting a chance. They turned the ball over against Richmond. That's been well documented and talked about. The difference was Illinois State, both defensively and offensively, they knew that Southern, they knew their strength, and that's what Coach has talked about since he's got here, going both ways and trying to speed up Illinois State. Illinois State did not allow themselves to get sped up. It's very smart on Illinois State's part. The other thing was I didn't underestimate it because the numbers kept saying that Illinois State is really solid defensively. And them jumping into that zone, it really did have a factor. It took away any rhythm. Southern could never get a rhythm going offensively. And one example I'm stuck with, and Southern's got to fix this certainly by the game against Bradley, is that Sykes is so good playing without the ball in his hands. And last night he was playing offensively with the ball in his hands. And that didn't seem to work, especially against a good interior defense like Illinois State.
Ty Pence was really good. He was the Ken Palm MVP in the game. He was one of the most efficient players, if not the most efficient players by numbers in terms of Ken Palm on the year. And not to say his first half was quiet by any means, but his second half was huge, Coach Watson. Just was able to get so many different guys involved, even guys like Claybo, who finished the game with only 7 points, made some timely shots. And Landon Wolf had some key plays, specifically the one I remember is where it looks like Ronzalibe has a clean rebound, and Landon Wolf just comes right back around, takes the ball away, and ends up earning points for Illinois State. That's
a great call because that was a point where Southern they were in a legitimate spot. It was 5 points at that point, and that's a 2-3 possession game there, and Southern really had some momentum going, and that was a big play. Another big play, and please take this, everyone, in the way it's intended. It's when Wolf caught the ball for a 3 on the left wing in front of Illinois State's bench to extend the lead to 7. And it was a rolling screen. Walker set a rolling screen on Southern that was allowed to happen, which and Moore still got to make the shot, which he did. But that was a gigantic play as well. There's so many plays, but the difference, again, kind of going back to the Richmond versus Illinois State, while that run in the middle by Richmond in the second half, the run in the middle, the 20 points on 8 possessions. Now, let me clarify it. It's 18 points in offensive play. Then you add on the back end of the 8th possession 2 free throws made on the technical foul, which I'm not usually a big fan of that. In that case, I was a big fan of Coach really voicing his disapproval of what he thought his guy got fouled on a play. I thought it was a very smart, and I'm telling you, it was calculated. It was a calculated move to establish a point, and it did change the momentum in the crowd. The crowd got into it. So I thought that was a good play. But all that said, 18, 20 points on 8 possessions, when you can't get stops, you've got to answer baskets. And that's as part of, the offense can be your best defense. And in that middle stretch, both in Richmond and against Illinois State, not only did they score, but Southern wasn't answering their baskets. When you answer baskets, now the other team's taking the ball to bounds, and you can get the game full court by creating more pressure. But just didn't work Southern's way, and without question, that's the stretch that was the determining factor.
It was a huge determining factor in the game, and one of the areas that you did bring up, Coach Watson, was Coach Nagy getting the technical foul there late, and you saw the energy, not just with the fans flip, but even with the players. You've coached a lot of different teams, and I've just broadcasted games. I've not sat in the coach's chair, but there are multiple games I can think of throughout my years where on a night where you feel like, man, the energy level has got to be extremely high. It's the Valley opener. You're hosting the preseason #1 team. Like, there's every reason in the fiber in your body that you're going to show up and have the most energy possible. Southern didn't last night. That was clear for the majority of the game. How do you stack that up, and more just relating to it from a coaching perspective of, sometimes there are nights just where, for some reason, that energy level is hard to find. And I even looked at you at halftime, and it was like, I know we're up 5, but it's not like this was the best 20 minutes that Southern Illinois has played. And then both of us were like, man, I think that's a good thing when you're up 5 and you don't feel you've played your best against the preseason #1 team. Obviously, the momentum really switched there in the early stages of that second half. But my point being is, how do you explain to fans that just watch it from the fan perspective of how those things can happen?
I think there are a few games within the game going on, especially in the first half. Drew Steffi couldn't get going offensively, and he's been able to find his offense recently. I think for the first time, I think it affected how he was guarding. When he couldn't make a three, he was 0 for 4, and in the second half, not so much in the first as we're talking about. It was another big play where Drew got really, really lax on a switch, and his man countered the switch and did a fade step back from the wing and was a wide open set shot. And that cut, when Southern had their biggest lead at 8, that cut it to 5, and Southern couldn't recover. Again, that second half. Now back to the first half, the turnovers it'll deflate you. It'll flatten you. And I use the word flat. I thought Southern was flat in areas, but when you think about the turnovers in the first half, 9 of them, and Kelron, and he owned it, man. You talk about a really good guy in the post game. He had a terrific offensive game. It's great to see him find his mid-range shot against a good defensive team. And he's the first one to say, I got my own way. I was making careless passes. And it wasn't a blame game. His teammates weren't blaming him, and no one cares more about taking care of the ball than Kelron. And then you had 4 others, but here's the magnitude. I brought it up at halftime. In the 22, there were 31 possessions in the first half. So we gave it away, and really they were unforced primarily by and large. So you take those 9 away, 22 good possessions where you got a shot. Southern scored 35 points. That's 1.59 points a possession. Okay, and just trust me, that's a lot of points per possession. And you're actually playing really well for 2/3 of the half, but it's marred by just wasted opportunities. And you're in your 12th game of the season. It's not like it's November. The other biggest problem with turnovers, 22 is not good in 45 minutes. Okay, really 10% is what you can live with as a coach. If there's 60 possessions, you don't like them, but you can live with 6 turnovers. If there are 70, you get the 10% rule. Okay, and then 10% plus 1 or 2 maybe. But when there's 60, 2 or 3 possessions like there were last night, 31 the first half, you can't give the ball away nearly a third of your possession, 30% of your possession. So that's why it felt bad. That's why it looked bad, because that was unfortunate. Now, being up 8, Southern came out of the locker room at halftime, and they had a pretty good rhythm going. They were taking care of the ball. They get the thing to 8. You had a lazy switch by, and I'm not sure who was involved. I think it may have been Mayo, but I don't want to, without watching film, I don't. And again, it's not a blame thing. It's a mistake that in the Valley, I keep talking about scouting. You do. Dave Snell will talk about it. Bradley knows Southern switches all the time. They switch off ball, and what are they going to do? They're going to counter that. They're not just going to let you switch and take their offense away. They're like, all right, if you're going to switch, we're going to counter it this way, and then you change your action, you change your movement, you use fades instead of straight cuts, and Southern got burned on it, and then against Illinois State, it was unfortunate because there was the makings of a really good ball game.
One of the key differences in the game, Coach Watson, was the Salukis have been so good in finishing not only within the 10-foot zone, but at the rim. They had 15 shots at the rim. And when I say at the rim, that's within 4.5 feet of the basket. Southern shot 46% last night. It was one of the lowest on the year. 7 of 15 when you get within that 4.5 feet of the rim. How did Illinois State do within 4.5 feet of the rim? They had 18 shots within that area last night. As we record this on Friday, they were 15 of 18, 83%. To me, that was the major difference in the game. When Illinois State got to the rim within 4.5 feet, they finished it more times than not. And unfortunate for Southern, and that's been a strength of Southern. I don't think what we're talking about right now is not going to be a mark of this team. That's going to flip. I think that was a rare blimp on the radar for this group. But in terms of last night, that was a massive difference that Southern missed 8 shots within 4.5 feet of the rim.
As a listener, as a fan, I'm asking why. Well, the why is this. It wasn't because Southern was careless. It wasn't because, Southern's got a tough team. They're just tough, and they were tough last night. It's just that last night, they also ran up against a defense and I mentioned before, they're very good on the interior. They got Chase Walker, 6'8", 6'9". They have Lieb that comes in, 7-footer. Okay, so they have length in those spots. Okay, they also have the guy that really impressed me was Skunberg, the North Dakota.
Oh boy! Don't say he was a jackrabbit now.
I guess we got to play him again, don't we? But he was impressive, and he really played hard, and he was handsy on the ball. He would guard the ball handlers out front. He was going hard after offense, defensive rebounds. He was digging in on those things. Pence was the same way. It wasn't just the two big guys. It was Illinois State has really increased their toughness. And they had a lot to do with Southern's 40-some% shooting at the rim. So give Illinois State the credit that's due. The other part, the zone defense, Southern couldn't find any rhythm. Normally, Southern's very good about having 3 perimeter players, having a guy flash to the middle at the free throw line, another player, coach likes him at the block, whether it's the block or the short corner, then that way the floor's got to be covered. Southern could never get in that spot consistently where they caught the ball, squared up basket, looked what we call downhill, down to the floor, and then if the defense really shrinks in, your shooters on the wings will kind of slide more to the corner to open areas. Southern couldn't find that rhythm, and Illinois State was very wise in how they used their zone through, especially in the second half, early second half, all the way to the end of the game.
Another just weird stat from the game when you combine both teams. How about 21 missed free throws? SIU missed 10. They were 12 of 22 at the line. Illinois State, they were 7 of 18 at the free throw line. It was just a tough night shooting at the charity stripe. I bring that number up not just because they just say, okay, free throw shooting, but how Southern really wants their identity to be offensively, Coach Watson. And so many people are right. They bring up the lack of three-point attempts for Southern. How many times are you fouled on a three-point attempt? It's very, very small in reality. It's not a shot that where a lot of the time you're going to get fouled on. Now, if you're really good at it and you're shooting above 40%, it's a great shot to have. But Coach Nagy knows that this team, the identity of it is, look, they're not a tremendous three-point shooting team, but he knows we got physical dudes now, and we're going to get extra opportunities at the free throw line and start fouling out dudes on teams. That's a great strategy as well, and that's kind of the makeup that this Saluki team has, and that's why in a game like last night, and I know he knows about it when I bring it up, Drew Steffi knows that, man, when you get 4 crucial free throws late in the game, misses are going to happen. Can't miss all 4. Those are areas where this Saluki team, they have guys that are very tenacious offensively, Coach Watson. They want to be able to drive the basketball and earn some of those fouls. Just you can ill afford those type of nights to be common, especially when it's going to be a huge part of your DNA of what you want your offense to be, which is to get to the free throw line.
Yeah, and there's no clear, obvious answer, or we'd be millionaires, and because we'd sell that book and probably wouldn't be doing a podcast today. But maybe we would. Maybe we'd do it on.
So you're telling me if you were
back of the rim and down, maybe.
I just want. You're telling me if you were a millionaire, you would have nothing to do with me. Is that what you're saying?
I'll tell you this: we wouldn't be doing this from Evansville. It did be in a warmer climate on a 30-degree day, a beautiful day. But anyway, it's very fixable, and it's a lot of times it is just in a person's head, and those thought processes is a big part of consistency. You know, when you look at Kinzinger, he never seemed to panic. Now, I don't know what was going inside his head when he didn't score at halftime. I don't know, but he sure didn't look like he panicked. He made a couple of big shots late in the game that were daggers. He is like the poster of consistency. And free throw line is a consistent mindset. I tried to always get it out of Greg Sterick, that for decades, the greatest career free throw shooter in the history of the NCAA. And I would say, hey, why don't you work with our guys? Why don't you do this and that? He goes, hey, he would basically say to me, I remember his biggest thing was shooting free throws. He goes, I made myself make X number of free throws in a row before I'd go home. He goes, now, when you're in high school and you got a date that night, that creates some pressure, man. But he says, I'd say to myself, you got to make 20 before you leave the gym. And I had a date and or whatever the case might be, or I just want to get out of the gym. He would talk about the mental part of it, where you've got to mentally, once you have your mechanics right, you get your elbow and your one-piece shot and your follow-through and those that your staff's got to help you with. It's like Coach said about Ligbe. He said, back of the rim and down, you're in your own way here. And then, we've seen good improvement on short sample size with a guy like him. And Drew will get it. Drew's a good player, really good player, and he's a tough kid. And nobody question whether that guy wants to win and where winning is in his in his DNA, number one, but specifically with what he wants to get out of this thing. And he'll be fine. It's just today, the next day, right before the Bradley game, over break, I guarantee you that guy will be in the gym. He's a guy that after Memphis was in the gym at 1:30 in the morning when they got home. He's going to be fine.
Max Picard is a guy that we've seen get more and more time as this year's gone along. I bring him up because for you, Coach Watson, you talk about his ability to move his feet, especially defensively. And we even saw at times last night deflecting an inbounds pass. Trying to remember the exact moment in the game. Southern nearly got the ball, but I think Illinois State maintained possession. But clearly his length can be a problem. But I want you to talk about his strength of really how good he is defensively in terms of being able to move his feet and how he can really frustrate guards, especially out on the perimeter.
I brought the name Lieb up, the 7-footer, the transfer from Illinois that's with Illinois State. He got hurt in our game in January at SEFCU, and Lieb didn't play the rest of the year. Well, Lieb's a big factor for Illinois State's consistency, and where will Max be? I don't know. He's got to get stronger, but he does have the ability to move his feet. He's a guy that I don't think he really fully understands his strength. I know one of his strengths is when he can get on the baseline and make a basket cut behind a guy. He's strong at finishing offensively there, but defensively, he's still a guy that can guard differently in short in short spurts. He's not ready to be a big minute guy because just the strength factor and his stamina gets caught up with him, his strength with the ball once he gets the ball back in his hand. But his strength defensively is that he does have unusual length. And I don't care who you are, with exception maybe elite players, guys with length make you think about the trajectory of your shot, where you get your shot from. You can maybe get past him, and he still has the ability to. He got the goaltend in the first half. I thought it was a really good play because it sends a message. If you come close and I'm around, you got a chance of that thing getting tapped, and that stays in shooters' minds. So he can help Southern in there in that spot. The next part of it is, Max has got to realize he's getting scouted now, and so people are going to, they're going to isolate him. And the things that I haven't talked about, Bradley knows where they're going to go at him. So that's where everything with these young guys, these new guys to this league, they'll realize scouting report's a real thing.
Let's transition to the Bradley Braves and welcome on the voice of the Bradley Braves, Dave Snell. It's always entertainment when Dave Snell comes on our podcast. And we start off our conversation with him. He worked a little overtime, not just one, not just two, but 3 overtimes as we record this on Friday. 3 overtimes against Indiana State on Thursday, but the Braves came out on the winning side. Here's our convo with the legendary Dave Snell. Dave, my friend, how's that voice today? You rested up? You all ready to roll?
It's pretty good. I just listened to the Beatles channel on the way home. So, Bradley, in the last 2 games against Indiana State, has scored 226 points.
Wow.
118 last year and 108 last night. So that's kind of wild. Yep, 3 overtime games. Both teams had a chance to win it, couldn't. Free throws. A missed free throw and a 69-foot shot banked in, sent it to another overtime, and then Bradley dominated the 3rd overtime. They made some defensive changes at the right time and hit shots, and they played pretty good defense. So that's anytime you went on the road, that's like gold.
Oh, especially in that fashion. And Dave, we were just talking about it. Whenever in this league, if you can find a way to win, you're going to take it. It doesn't matter which way you have it. But you look at Bradley and Indiana State, you mentioned obviously the point total you've scored. Last time you were in Terre Haute, that game went to overtime as well. And actually, ironically, the game before that, you went into double overtime with Valpo, which was in Peoria. That's when you had those basically 3 overtimes in a row, double overtime Valpo, overtime with Indiana State. What's it been in Holman Center, man? What juices do you have in Holman Center that just allows that game to keep going to OT?
Because we don't have Zeke Montgomery anymore.
Yeah.
Zeke scored, I think, 15 points in 4 minutes in his next to last game before he went to Rhode Island there. And then he came back last year and torched him again. So it's funny how players do that against certain teams, the Braves were really kind to McDermott, and I remember there's a story. Dick Versace said that when Xavier McDaniel was leading the country in points and rebounds, Coach Versace said they pad his stats there. Well, they told McDaniel that on the plane, and he got so upset. He had 44 and 22 in the game. And so he said he was so mad, he was so angry. And then when, they talked about play angry, that's where it came. He told that story on the plane on some trip. So, there are some players that just torch other players. It's funny.
Dave, one of the areas with this Saluki team for sure, Coach Watson and I talk about all the time. We go back, let alone to the first exhibition, Austin Peay, but especially the second exhibition against Lindenwood, and go, man, this is not the same Saluki team. Like how much better they have gotten since October.
Yeah.
I look at your team from afar. It clearly looks like Bradley has gotten a lot better since October. How would you describe really the trajectory that Coach Wardle's team has been on since the start of the year?
I think it's that way with a lot of schools because you have so many new players. It's going to take a while. And when you lose 9 seniors and Duke Dean and all these guys are playing pro over in Europe, except Malavai Leons, who was there a couple of years ago, and now he's with Golden State. Yes, it's probably not as quick. It's a little bit, it's incremental, but you have to have mental toughness to win a game like last night. So that takes a little bit of that. Montana Wheeler is now getting better and better as time goes on. He's a freshman. So it's a new group playing together, and it's going to take some time. It takes time for most teams. Illinois State's got their players. Belmont's got their players. That's why they have done pretty well thus far. But everybody's going to catch up because they're going to get better as the season goes on, I think. So the Braves are getting there. They're not there yet, but they're making strides.
Jaquan Johnson has really made strides. Second-year guy, and he's really making big progress, leading in scoring. Did you see it coming, number one? And secondly, how much of an impact did Duke Dean have on Jaquan Johnson?
Big, because he got to play with him and against him all the time in practice. So you'd better be better or he's going to light you up. And he really did help Jaquan Johnson. They're two different players because he's a football player in a basketball uniform. He's stocky, he's well built, and he'll go into anybody and try to shoot and then go to the line. And you remember last year in the tournament, they fouled him on purpose in games because he was having such difficult time at the line. And he still struggles every once in a while, but he's much better. He's, I think, 77, 78% now, and you'll take that. And his outside shot is better. It's not Duke Dean, but it's getting there too. I think it's just because of reps, game reps. And Wheeler is just getting better and better. He's a very good player. Little guy. We got all good little guys. I think I'm watching the Munchkins again with our point guards. They're, they list them at 5'10", maybe on a footstool.
Bradley's team is very much like much of college basketball. You have a nice balance of returning players. You've got a good freshman you mentioned, and you have some incoming guys. An interesting storyline in this game is Alex Hubricks that came from Wright State. He was coached by Saluki coach Scott Nagy.
Yes.
Seems like he's fitting in nicely. What does he do especially well to complement this team now that you're in a stretch where the Braves have won 7 out of 8?
He can really shoot. He's a terrific shooter. There are practices he doesn't miss 4 shots. He's just a great shooter. But he's seeing 2 players sometimes. In the Liberty game, there were 6 seconds left in the half, and Bradley had the ball, and they 3-timed him. He was not going to get the ball. There are no secrets in the Valley. Okay, everybody knows what everybody's strengths and weaknesses are. Coaches are so good, and but he can really fire it, and he got a lot of shots late last night. He had 21 points. That was 3 overtimes, and he was a big part of that game last night as well. When he shoots it, I always think it's going in, and so he's good. He started every game, and it's uncanny when you get shooters like Damask. You think he's going to make every shot, and so it's everybody has their turns. It seems like Vandernap, the kid from Italy, had a terrific game last night, and made plays, not necessarily scoring, but steals and rebounds. He had 3 offensive rebounds in one set and finally made a layup. So those are just kind of the players you never know who's going to attack. I think your team's pretty good, and when I've seen them, they are better. There's no question. I think they're a lot better than they were last year. It's just going to, when you go to war in the Valley, you got to be on your A game, or it doesn't matter where the game is. Everybody's going to play hard. Everybody's well coached. Some teams have more experience than others, but sometimes those experienced players don't have great games as well. I mean, it happens.
Dave, one of the big areas when looking over the Bradley stat sheet to me and what's going to be a huge topic come Sunday, up until the last two games, SIU's done a really good job of taking care of the basketball. Turnovers haven't really been extremely high, but they have the last two games. It is clear Bradley forces a ton of turnovers. They're one of the elite teams in turning people over. What have you seen with this Bradley defense this year that just allows them to have so many extra opportunities to score the basketball?
I call the 2-point guards thieves, because that's what they do. The assisted turnover is very good for the most part. Their weakness has been free throwing, to be honest with you. But yet they have some guys that aren't shooting them well, and then others that are like this. Jonovic, you wouldn't think a big guy like that could shoot free throws. Well, he's only missed 3. The other guy, and Corey Thomas, who had a big game last night rebounding, and he hasn't shot the ball very well. And he's kind of struggled early in the season, but last night he really came about. They really take care of the ball, and they really go and get you. And one of the things is with Johnson, who is among the nation's leaders in steals, he'll just try to take it away from you physically. I saw his dad the other day. I said, you know how football players try to knock the ball out of guys' hands from behind? I said, he's the same guy. And because he was a very good running back, he knows how to get through traffic, and it doesn't matter how big they are. And he usually goes to the free throw line or makes 3-point play or finds some way to make it. So that is their strength.
And of course, one of the biggest strengths of your team over the last couple of years, Dave, has no doubt been Duke Dean. But it wasn't just what Duke did on the floor. What always impressed me when we were able to catch up with him, Rodney interviewed him multiple times, it was the maturity that he had, but also you could tell the leadership value piece that he brought to the team. How much of that maybe was missed early this year, and where do you feel that leadership piece, and who are some of those on the Braves that are starting to pick up that leadership piece that obviously Duke held a really big part of?
The biggest leader on the team is Corey Thomas. He's loud. He talks all the time. When he comes in to practice, till the end of practice, he's talking to everybody, and you know how important this is. Talking is huge. Calling out screens, which way the guy's going, screen left, screen, right, all of those things. Johnson is kind of a quiet guy. He doesn't say a whole lot. So Corey Thomas is the leader, and he comes off the bench. So it's not quite the same. Duke, he didn't demand it. He just took over. And he was very vocal at times and calling out players when they weren't performing or weren't in the right spots. And you can't teach that. You either have that or you don't. And there are a lot of players that you notice the players on other teams that do that. And usually those teams really develop, and it's important to have that guy on the floor. And when they're not on the floor, he does it from the bench too. So that's very important. As far as the starters, Birch is not talkative. Johnson is not. I think that Corey's probably the leader of the team.
Dave, A.J. Smith has got a little bit of a storyline here as well. His dad, Anthony, played for us. He played for Coach Herron back in the day, as we say. A.J., while it's his first year with Bradley, it'll be the second time he's played against the Salukis. He got him as a freshman when he was at Southern Indiana. They came over to Banterra Center. A.J.'s got 21 steals. That's impressive. What else is he bringing to Coach Wardle's team?
Usually rebounding. He'll board a little bit. He's had a couple of incredible rebounds. they don't rely on him to score that much, except around the basket when he gets some offensive rebounds, because they have other players that can do kind of those things. But he's kind of a glue guy. When he plays exceptional, Bradley has won. So he's kind of a key player for them. It was a James Madison last year. They had a good season. And I think he was one of the first recruits through the portal that Brian got. He's a very important player because when he plays well, they do pretty well.
Dave, let me go a different direction with this. And I'm seeing it kind of where we've been on the road a lot. And I'm seeing it at home. I'm seeing it on the road. I'm seeing it on television. Atmosphere in games, fans showing up to games. I see where you guys are averaging right close to 4,900 fans. We used to call Carver the biggest bar in Peoria, and it seemed like if the place was open, you had 7. Times have changed. I get it. What do we need to do to get our arenas back full of Missouri Valley fans?
When they had a nice crowd last night at Indiana State, but it wasn't like 2 years ago when you couldn't get a seat. When your team is fighting for a championship, Rodney, you were a part of all of that with the various coaches. It fills the place. But when you don't win, we don't want to get out. It's too cold. We don't want to pay to park. If we take our kids, the concession stand's going to crash us. I'll watch it on ESPNU. I'll stay home. There's a lot of that. But if you win, they want to be there. And I think that's the biggest part of it. And sometimes it's just impossible to draw anywhere because there are other things to do. Christmas shopping, that kind of thing this time of year. And it's also who you play. If you're playing Manny, Mo, and Jack, why do we want to watch that? Because it's going to be a 15-point. The other day, Bradley had a game at Renaissance Coliseum, and they got a nice crowd, but the Bears were playing against Cleveland, and the game was on television, and it was a Sunday afternoon right before Christmas, a week or two. So it was great for the people that got there, but we got a big snowstorm like the day before. So people find ways not to come sometimes when years ago you'd go no matter what. And times have changed on that. Plus, there are teams that get robbed by the big guys and they take your stars, and now you're starting over again, and it takes a while to build that up. People want to watch winners, and they don't go just for the atmosphere anymore.
When I talk about names like Hersey Hawkins and Anthony Parker, and then Southern's had their guys that have gone on, and you've been around it longer than I have. You mentioned Malavi Leones. One, and I'll say this in all fairness, when he was a junior, I really felt like he should have and I know that Tucker DeVries was pretty well a lock for the POI, but however, if you did the numbers by all the stats, the conference stats in conference play, Leones had the best numbers more than Tucker, all things considered. One, does it surprise you he's playing in the NBA? And secondly, what can we do better as a league in our positions as broadcasters to really promote the AJ Greens, the Ben Shepherds, the Leones? And I brought up, Hersey Hawkins. It was a no-brainer. He was going to be in the league. Okay. But Anthony Parker, when he was playing, we knew he was good. I don't know that Chris Carr, I coached him. We knew he was good. But we've had pros in this league, and we still have pros in the league. Again, the short question is, what can all of us do to really help educate our fans that we really have good players? Yeah, the big guys are getting Damascus in the 5th year and whatever year, but we still got terrific players, and we have really good freshmen in this league.
Yeah, it's a thing that you have to buy into the league and everybody else, and not be so narrow-minded of my team is the better players, da-da-da-da-da. You got to take that off. A good announcer, a good fan is going to realize greatness when they see it, or potential greatness when you see it. There have been a lot of Saluki players that I have really, Dearman. Dearman was one. In fact, remember they had the get together a couple of years ago when Bruce Weber came back. Uh, I talked to him and I said, if Bradley had you with the team at that time, they would have won the league championship. That's how much I enjoyed watching him play. Even though, look at how they massacred our boys. It was great to see him perform. And you don't get that all the time. I think it's people that love the game a lot and appreciate greatness or potential greatness when they see it. And usually those people to go along with that have great personalities. Malavai was an intern for us back here at Bradley. He was in my office every day and he was talking about stuff. He says, I want to go into marketing and I'd like to market my own shoe and call it Malafly. I mean, he was bright. And Brian talks to the players. This is what Malavai told us to do. You know, when he was actually teaching the other players about the defensive part of it. He wasn't a rah-rah guy, but when it was time to play, he was really good. And there are so many other players that have that. Is it Lindblade, the guy that shoots all the balls at Belmont? I mean, that's a special player, and they're all over the place. John Sherman Williams, who played years ago with Indiana State, he was a terrific player, and the guys at Wichita they had when they were really good, and one of them still playing. I think he was from the Lakers. I think he's still with the Lakers. So in answer to your question, Rodney, I think it's attitude, it's love for the game, and not necessarily always for the team. You want to do that. Obviously, you want your team to win, and you broadcast because you're broadcasting to your fans. But you also, on the other hand, see greatness and realize it when you see it.
Dave, one of the areas that Coach Nagy is credited for the reason of the growth in SIU from last year to this year is, yes, having 6 guys come back. 5 of the 6 played a year ago, 1 redshirt and Jaheim Weber. But he hinted at his staff. He's like, man, to retain his staff was really important for him. Coach Wardle had a lot of guys get new gigs over this offseason. How has that dynamic been for him in terms of regenerating a staff? Because a lot of those guys were with him for a long time there in Peoria.
Yeah, in fact, Mike Bargan and his wife were at the game last night. They're at Indiana now, and it's all relative. Indiana's struggling a little bit, and they feel that. I think that Brian likes it because he's getting new ideas. When you have Jimmy Foster and Bargan, and the same guys over and over again, they know what you're doing. They know the system. But now when you get all these new guys, you're hearing different voices and different ideas. And Brian likes that. He needs that because it's a staff, not just one person. There's a figurehead, but it's kind of like the football stuff. You need an offensive and defensive coordinator. You need special teams coach and that type of thing. It's the same thing. I miss those guys because you have relationships with them when they're there for so long. And Coach Nagy's going to have the same thing. There are a great advantage from everybody being together for a long time. There are no secrets.
And it was clear too last year, Dave, when you saw the Salukis in early December, that was fresh off a Florida trip where Elijah Elliott, their point guard, gets hurt. They had no idea who they were at that time. Was much better the second time around. Braves still really physicality-wise won that night and wasn't much of a threat in Peoria when they played the Salukis. Now, year two, you're diving more into the numbers today. We get that before we get to Sunday. Kind of just your gut. I know you listen to us throughout the non-conference portion of the season, just how you feel in terms of the difference in Southern Illinois that you're going to see on Sunday versus a year ago.
Well, I think they're a tough team to play. I really do. They're very athletic. They like to run, and players love to run. With that, you got to play defense. If you play defense and get the ball out or turn the ball over, it sets up your fast break. So a lot of teams let their poor defense or their poor offense affect their defense too. And that's teams that dig a hole. I'm expecting a good close game. I really am, because the Salukis are going to be hungry. They've had success in the preseason, and if you're not ready to play, somebody else will be. And I think both teams will be ready to play in that game, because you got talent. You really do. House has been terrific, and you've got the guys that are coming back. I've gone over some of the stats, and I think you've got a deeper team too than you had last year. And so I'm expecting a good game. Looking forward to see you guys, and Reese is making the trip too. So we always have a great time.
Dave, something Coach Weber always cautioned us about was the game before Christmas break. Have you seen that over the years being an issue that, Coach would always say, we can't let our team go home at halftime. We've got to, and he back when leagues were 10 teams throughout the country, his first year at Southern Illinois, we played at Western Kentucky on the 21st, 22nd, and we got beat there. And he got on the bus and he grumbled to me and said, "Don't ever schedule a game on the road before Christmas break." Well, now you have no choice now in league play. Have you seen that being a factor throughout the years?
Yes and no. I think it depends on the attitude of the team and the coaching and the way that they handle things, whether they go hard, whether they ease up. During semester exams is really a tough one too, because they've got this going on and that going on, and you don't practice quite as much as a full team because you've got guys taking exams. The big one is Hawaii. When a team goes to Hawaii and comes back, that's the time to get them, because in fact, Bradley played Washington State, and they were coming back from Maui and made a stop, I think, on the West Coast, and then came to Peoria, and they struggled. They struggled a lot. They lost a lot to the pros last year. Bradley played them last year. They had a player that hurt his shoulder in his seventh game. He was averaging 17 points a game, and they lost him for the rest of the season, and that was pretty much their season. And now he's with the Memphis Grizzlies. He was drafted there. I haven't noticed the Christmas as much, I don't think, as the exams, the exam time. And then when they go from being off a month because of the semester break, and now they got to go to class again. That is a little bit, because now you got to reboot, so to speak. But there are some teams that will struggle at that time, and you can't now, because of the way the league is. You're going to be playing a couple of games real early, like we're doing now.
It's part of it. It's now in the Missouri Valley Conference with this 20-game gauntlet, and we'll discuss on the podcast looking at the first batch of games coming through, Dave. I thought you put it perfectly, and we'll get you out of here on this note of just what type of year you expect in the Valley. And I think what sometimes our fans will hear, they will hear different guys say, okay, you start to think that there's going to be teams, and look, there's 11 teams. So someone's going to have to be 11th and fill up the standings from there on out. But even when you say, hey, these teams look like they're going to be, quote, bottom tier, don't think that means it's just going to be a night where you can just show up, roll out the basketball, and it's going to be an easy win. I know how we feel about the league coming into the year. from your seat, being one of the teams, by the way, that was in the preseason poll. Southern was not in the preseason poll. They just did the 5 teams this year. How do you feel about the league? Just going the rest of the year, and what type of year you expect?
You have to play with the same thing that Bradley played with last night, mental toughness. You're going to have runs in different games. Some are bigger than others. You get in at a 13-point hole. Bradley was down 13 to San Diego out in at Disney, and they had it a 2-point game in the last 2 minutes of the game. So if you've got mental toughness on your team and you have that going for you, you have a chance to win, and that goes across the board. That's Evansville. That's UIC. Those are the teams that, at Evansville, that Bradley plays Evansville after you guys leave in a week. I think it's after Christmas. But if you don't bring it every night, you're going to get beaten, and it doesn't matter where it is.
No one probably understands my last question to you more than us three. Do we want to run through UT Martin's names real quick?
No. I started working on those on Tuesday before a Saturday game.
Oh, brother.
And I've blanked my names out of my mind. They had the worst for me has been Dick Versace took a team to exhibition game in Springfield that we did against the Taiwan Nationals. Then we went to Tokyo and played a local team, and then Maine a couple of years ago. But by far the worst one was this Tennessee Martin team. They had 3 Americans, 1 played, and the rest of them were spelling bee outers. You could, and I had I keep all my boards. I just threw that one at the bottom and said, never again. They were all from Croatia, Romania. One was from Moscow, and his name was Vladimir. Of course.
Hey, Ronnie just kept saying Denushish over and over and over.
You guys beat them, right?
Thumped them. Which that just shows you, right, how everybody loves to do these comparative scores and say, well, this team played this team, so that means, give UT Martin credit. I think they had their point guard was out that night as well, but still, nonetheless, Southern played really well against UT Martin.
Yeah. I saw that score and I go, Southern must be pretty good. Beating that team. We really turned the corner when they beat Liberty. Liberty had lost, I think they were unbeaten, and then they lost the day before to Townsend. And they run about 100 different sets. And Bradley defended all of them. So I think that kind of gave them a little bit of a jump. Because they played St. Bonaventure tough in the first game of the year in not too far from Charlotte, with about 30 miles from Charlotte south. Played at Coastal Carolina last year, and this one was I get them all mixed up. This travel stuff. I just load stuff in and get my okay. Where are the directions to this one?
That's right.
That one. So I look forward to see you guys this weekend, and I look forward to a good game too.
Rock Hill, South Carolina is where
That's it.
So, yes. Yeah. Hey, sometimes I've had to tell RW too, when you've gone over whatever that number was, 12,000 plus miles that the Salukis have done to and from, you kind of remember that, man, Reno, Nevada is kind of in the middle of nowhere. So,
by the way, last night, the magic number of the game was 72.
Wow.
It was tied at 71. So the next team is going to cover the magic number. Bradley did, but it went overtime, so it wipes it out. It's got to be a game. Now it's not failed in 95 consecutive games.
Wow.
I know you guys did it, and I've listened to you guys. I think that's when Maurice was on, and he says, if this doesn't work, I'm going to give Snell all kinds of grief. And it worked that day. I was keeping track. I was listening.
Yes, it's always good to remind Mike Reese of that too, by the way. And I'm sure you'll remind him on Sunday as well. Our good friend, the voice of the Bradley Braves, Dave Snell. Dave, thanks so much for the time as always, my brother. We look forward to seeing you on Sunday.
Two of my favorite guys, I tell you. And then we have to do a basketball game.
Dave really did a good job in highlighting Bradley, Coach Watson, in terms of their team this year, and they've no doubt turned a bit of a corner, it seems, being able to go on the road to win that game in triple overtime against Indiana State. They've won every game since November 26 against Liberty following that San Diego game, which Dave said that was a turning point for them. They're 8-4 right now on the year. They've won their last 4. Man, this is a Bradley team that has really had an outstanding stretch, and should say they've won their last 5, and even if you stretch it past that, they've won 7 of their last 8.
He used 2 words this guy's been around for 46 seasons, so he's got a pretty good feel for this thing. He used the term mental toughness, and he's seeing mental toughness out of this group that's becoming cohesive. And it took some tough nights in November, and they get a Princeton team that, Princeton apparently have really smart guys. I'm not sure they're a great basketball team, but that's still a good sound of a name win. And from there, they've been really tough going forward. But the mental toughness part, you can see it by numbers. You can see it in a few possessions if you get a chance to watch them on the ESPN Plus. But they're led by Jaquan Johnson. And like Dave said, they call him 5'11". Not sure he is, but it doesn't matter. Like I said last night about Sundberg, it's 6'5", 5'5", 7'5". It doesn't matter if the guys like Johnson and so forth. They play so hard. 42 steals at 12 game. That's a serious number. That's another thing. Like we talked about earlier, we talked about Picard's length having a factor on scores. Well, when you're being guarded by Johnson and he has the ability just to snatch it from you and go convert on the other end, a guy getting 18 points, second on the team in rebounds, he does everything. And it doesn't matter how tall he is or whatever, he's tough enough.
One of the key areas, it's going to be I say concern, but we've touched up on it and brought up to Dave, SIU turning the basketball over at a clip that typically they just aren't used to, Coach Watson. 21% is their turnover rate the last 2 games against Illinois State and Richmond. This Bradley team thrives on turnovers. Their defensive turnover percentage this year is 10th in the country. They turn over teams almost at a 23% clip. If SIU wants a chance, Coach Watson, on Sunday to have to go on the road and earn what would be a really hard road win, I don't think we can put it more simplistic than this. SIU's got to take better care of the ball.
When you say 23%, you might as well say 25%. I'm looking at 124 steals, okay? And let's say you play however many possessions you play, but you're saying a number that 1 out of 4 times they make you turn it over. Obviously, that big in Southern's preparation, getting ready for Bradley, they know that. I feel good about Jaquan. I don't see a guy like him, whether it's him or whoever else, I don't see him having that issue again. But certainly spacing on the floor, using your dribble wise, not over-dribbling, because that leads a lot to steals. Obviously, passing lanes, playing in gaps defensively. Southern's got to know where Bradley's defense is. Just a lot of things in this preparation on a pretty short turnaround. They've got to be wise in knowing where that Bradley defense is located. Now, here's the good thing. Obviously, they're turning people over, but if you can get a shot on goal, they're giving up 35% three-point shooting on the season. They're giving up 43%, which is solid from 2. There are plenty of ways for Southern to score. And as we said in the first half against Illinois State, when Southern gives themselves a chance to score with their ability to rebound, Bradley's not rebounded great. They're on the -2 for a team that has won a bunch of games. They're a -2 on the rebounding side. They're even on their offensive rebound, which means they're giving up offensive rebounds, 10 a game. Southern's got plenty of areas to go, but they've got to get shots on goal.
Should be a good one on Sunday in Peoria, Illinois. SIU and Bradley renew this Missouri Valley Conference rivalry. It's going to be a 1 o'clock tip on Sunday, which means our Saluki radio coverage will begin at noon. Again, a big thank you to Dave Snell for diving in, doing the deep dive with the Bradley Braves. For the coach, Rodney Watson, I am Luke Martin. We'll talk to you Sunday, Saluki Nation. Go Dogs.
This has been Saluki Royalty, the official podcast for Saluki Athletics. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review however you listen. The preceding has been a Learfield presentation on the Saluki Sports Network.